Martin, and you're listening to The Difference. It is a beautiful day, and we got a heavy topic to talk about. And I think I got a guest here who's going to take it to it step by step, point by point, through the whole conversation. Um, Jackie Rice, I have known, I'm not going to say how long I have known her, but she is my guest today. And so thank you, Jackie, for coming in. Okay, so now talk to me about who you are. You know, for the couple of people who will be listening who don't already know.
So for the other two who are listening and don't know my name, my name is Jacquelyn Rice, and I've been in Milwaukee for a few years. Actually, I did all of my adult life in Milwaukee. I came to Wisconsin, to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And I remained here because I had a financial obligation because they gave me a scholarship to come to graduate school.
Okay.
And I was paused to leave and move to the job I had offered in California. And my parents reminded me that I made a promise.
Okay.
And I had
So
to keep that for
integrity.
whatever you
Integrity
want
was
to call it.
important.
I was a little bit out of shape when I had stayed. So I've been here for quite a few years, and
You came from South Carolina originally?
I am from South Carolina. Someone said, I heard that South Carolina name in there. I said, well, that's where I'm from, South Carolina.
Mhm.
And for those who HBC oriented, A and T,
Okay.
that's where I graduated from.
Okay.
So I've been around, and my area of concentration academically I was in social work. And so in Madison, I became in the track for mental health or psychiatric social work. So I came to Milwaukee and began my career at the Milwaukee County Mental Health Complex.
Yeah.
And so I've been around doing that. I had the opportunity to do a little teaching in some of the universities around, meet some people and do some things. And when I look back, I say, it wasn't affirmative action. It was something else. I was very blessed to be able to have those opportunities
Yeah.
and ran into people who gave me an opportunity. I didn't do it all by myself.
How did you get to Wisconsin to begin with? How did you come to find out about even
So
opportunity here?
A&T was one of the, A&T was not known as a HBCU then.
Okay.
But University of Wisconsin and other Big Ten schools developed a relationship with some of the larger schools. NCC, one in Madison, in Milwaukee, had a relationship, and so my school was paired up with Madison,
Hmm.
and so they also had students to go to A&T.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I
Okay.
got here, I ran into a couple of girls who are women now who were the A&T.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
beautiful. And what did you think you were going to do? Other than go to California, what did you think you were going to do?
Well, work, be free, have a good life.
Oh my goodness.
And my sister found some
Young,
opportunities.
gifted, and black is what I keep hearing in the background.
Well, young, gifted, young, young. The other part, we'll wait up on that for a while. But social work was not something that I just thought about. My mother went to graduate school of social work at the AU before I
Wow.
was born.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know why my father lured her out of graduate school. They got married, moved to Philadelphia, where my mother was born. And so, they were trained as teachers.
Well, now you don't normally hear a lot about African Americans who were in graduate school at these earlier periods. So
AU, Atlanta University
Okay.
School of Social Work. And she
Okay.
did her first, because there were not opportunities in the city,
Mhm.
they had their internships were often done out of state
Yeah.
where hospitals or schools or something would take them. So, yeah.
And so why do you think that you were in a position to both know about opportunity and to take opportunity?
My grandfather, who had the least amount of education anybody in the family, sent everybody to school.
Okay.
And so it's always been, my great grandmother went to Barbara Scotia College.
Okay.
And so that was always a part of our culture. Books were always in our house, but work was also the hallmark of our family's existence. Everybody knew how to work,
Okay.
did work,
So education and work.
and
Okay.
religion.
And okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, so
Now
that-
I dodged that when I got to college, but I came back.
Wait, is this the testimony?
Yes, a
Are you-
testimony. We all need about right now, right? Right. So it's always been there. And
Yeah.
so one of the things my aunt used to tell me, she said, they said, Daddy convinced us to leave South Carolina. So in California, and they were in California, they were in Kansas City, they were in Connecticut, all around. All of his children and my mother's first cousins went to college on my grandfather's dime.
Okay. And you came north to
And
the Midwest.
I was headed to AU, and they said, no, we're going to go to the other school that they've been talking about. And so my grandfather and mother brought me up to Madison, where I had a scholarship. Right?
Wow. Okay. So, all right, religion, education,
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. That I'm gonna see if we can't remember these three things were the formula for you to be successful.
See, I grew up and my family had funeral home and grocery store. Well, my after school hours, after I got out of band and other kinds of things, I worked in the grocery store for at least a couple hours.
So entrepreneurship in your family as well.
Correct.
Okay. So just a lot going on and a lot to live up to.
Yeah. So I guess I did, but so I'm still here.
Okay. Now, all right. And there's a reason why I'm going down this path. All right. So, I feel like I should pull my pad out because I should be putting this formula down right now. So, because I want you changing the formula later on.
All right.
Okay. So now, when you got here and then your career started here instead of being in California,
Correct.
just kind of run us through some of the career opportunities you've had since you came to college here.
Didn't come to college here. Came to work here.
I mean, come
from
right.
college, from grad school.
Well, I mean, you came
pretty
up
much.
here for...
My career has always been around social work.
Okay.
And my mother career was going to be social work, but it ended up in teaching, and that's the career path I've always had.
Okay.
Simultaneous social work, teaching, and things like that. So
Okay.
not much.
Okay. And you were at the county at one point
Milwaukee
in time?
County Mental Health Complex, recruited by Milwaukee County, and I got the job.
Okay.
So
Okay. And you've stuck with this. I'm pushing you, and you've stuck with this. So you're now at St. Charles Youth and Family Services.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So I've stuck with it. This is interesting because I was laid off in Milwaukee County as a social worker because they had the seniority, and there was a person who had 6 months more than I did.
Oh wow.
And so I was laid off, and I began to try to find unemployment. And that was during the period where we had a lull in employment, and people were laying off, like, what would that be, like the 70s when we had that lull. And I found one at UWM, and I worked in the employment search office, where students come to find employment. And I stayed there about less than 6 months, and I got asked to come back to Milwaukee County, and I worked at the Department of Social Services, called the Welfare Department.
Okay.
And I ran the
social,
and then I ran the Child Protective Service. Was involved in Child Protective Services.
Right. And I think that's been a hallmark of a lot of your career has been Child Protective Services, right?
For the last few years.
Yeah. I like how you caught yourself.
Yes, I did.
So, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to talk today. First of all, I wanted to sort of get that background, right? That you are somebody who's, from an academic standpoint, from a vocational standpoint, from a values and career orientation standpoint, you have been rooted in Child Protective Services and working with families, in working with mental health, all those things.
I like to say that my profession has been, and my belief system, philosophy of life has been rooted into the tenets and principles of social work, which are aligned to Christianity. And so I believe, that we should give back, but we also have to be mindful of our others around us. I personally believe that I can't assume that I'm good and everybody around me is not doing well, because if everyone's not doing well, your little individual won't be. So I don't mind when everyone progresses. I'm not envious of you making a couple of $1 million. I just believe the people behind you.
Speak it into existence.
Go ahead and
speak it into existence.
I hope you have your $1 million saved and get it, that it will not bother me. What I believe is that everyone should have an opportunity to make that which they can make,
Right.
not make anything. And
Yeah.
and that's what I see
Yeah.
here now since I've been an adult, that there is always that part of the environment which excludes people from maintaining themselves
Hmm.
financially
Hmm.
or now mental health wise, and
Hmm.
to do well. So
Hmm.
the question you asked me once before is that, well, why can't they be a good parent? Because
Wait. We're jumping ahead
no, no,
here.
no, no, I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
Because I believe it's part of them assuming responsibility for themselves. Because you were talking about
Oh. Wait. We
individuality.
haven't got that far in the
I'm
show
just saying.
yet.
So
See, this is what happens. Debo, we were talking about this, right? So we were talking so much before the show that now we're talking referring back to the.
no, but I'll come back to that. But I just believe a part of what I
Yeah.
believe in is that I can't do well and look at him and say he ought to get a job when I know what the limitations
Yeah.
are. So that's part of what I believe
Well,
in.
what reason
Because
I want to have
I
you
was given
come?
opportunities, and I think
Yeah.
people should be given
No,
opportunities.
I think that's look. I think it's awesome and important that everybody have opportunity. I also balance that against what do we do to make sure for the well-being of children and the way that they are cared for or not cared for, right? So I think as a society we say, um, look, I think generally as a society we want everybody to do well, whatever that's
Whatever
defined
the
as,
well is,
whatever the well is,
whatever the
right?
well
Okay,
is, right?
and you do with well whatever that
That's
is, right?
correct.
I think it's also true that society does not want to see children have to bear the brunt of either neglect or abuse, right?
See, I have a little anxiety sometimes about that
Hmm.
because it's only when it's presented in their face.
Hmm.
It's okay when they don't see it.
Right.
So it's evident in how they dismantle programs,
Hmm.
how they minimize resources to some groups and maximize to other
But it
groups.
also assumes that the resources are being used to the betterment of children.
I think if I give you something, you use it,
Yeah.
but I still believe that the discriminatory practices of some get more than others. What if we believe in children growing and becoming productive, then everyone should have the same opportunities. Now, it doesn't have to be in the same building or the same neighborhood, but the ability to get that
Hmm.
same opportunity.
Yeah.
So you talked about neglect and stuff. If
Yeah.
children don't get the same kind of food because I'm making $7 an hour, I'm
Yeah.
going to be eating a lot of things that are probably more filling than nurturing.
Hmm.
So it is a dicey balance in trying to understand why you're not helping your children.
Yeah. Well, so back up. I think the reason, because again, you're getting a little ahead, but part of the thing that I did want
I'm fast.
you are. I see Debo back there. He's trying not to say anything about the situation over here. He just, I'm surprised you don't have any popcorn back there, man. Right? Because, but I think there is this. Some of this comes down to philosophy, our life
Yes,
philosophy of
correct.
how we look at and about responsibility and accountability, all of that, right? So I stand, and think about some of the stories that we've seen come out recently. One of the big stories that's out right now is 6 children found in a storage unit. The 6 children range from 2-month old. Uh, the other children are 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, and 9 years old, all locked in a storage unit. I think Debo was mentioning to me, the early stories didn't mention why they were in the storage unit. And Debo was mentioning to me later about the fact that this is a homeless family where they've been essentially using that storage unit as housing, right? Yeah. So that seems to have been like a developing part of the story. My concern is clearly that's not the best place for children to grow and the kinds of things that you would see and experience in that kind of situation. So that's one. Additionally, then, as I'm looking and I'm just researching and just thinking, because this bothered me really about a 2-month old living in that kind of situation, right? And then just we had another story here in Milwaukee about domestic violence situation where the father ends up, beating on the wife, and then picking up and throwing off a second-story balcony a one-year-old child, who then hit the ground. And so my where I'm coming from is, what do we do to ensure, because those kids haven't asked to be in these kinds of situations, and what do we do as a society to protect them, from this kind of violence or neglect, right?
See, William, I appreciate the passion in terms of your concern, but this is just a tipping point because this has
Mhm.
been going on. There are a lot of families who are together living in a car.
Yeah.
Unless that car comes in we don't care. We just as long as it don't show
Mhm.
its face to me.
Yeah.
The thing that you're asking, which there is no answer, and we could have an answer if we provide resources, that
Mhm.
why is that family homeless?
Mhm.
And why is that they could not have gone to whatever the designated office is to receive assistance and
Yeah.
be eligible for that
Yeah.
assistance? So you didn't hear any that they were underfed, that they were malnourished. They were just homeless based on what you were saying.
Mhm.
And that's an issue that this country needs to deal with. We have a lot of resources, but we decide to whom we should allocate the
Which
resources.
is always in every society going to be the
So
case,
your
right?
question is kind of like redundant in saying, well, we know the answer.
Mhm.
We know the answer because, but we haven't been able to solve the issue. These issues that of homelessness, poverty, domestic violence,
Yeah.
sexual abuse, all of
Yeah.
that is historical. It just didn't start.
No, and again, but I think of the
And
kids who
if
are in
that's
it now today. Like, what do we do now for these 6 kids? What do we do for
I
them?
don't I have
You
I
know?
don't I just only heard a little about it, so
Yeah.
I don't know what the plan or what the
Hmm.
department did. If
Yeah.
they removed them from their parents and incarcerate their parents, so they will have to have a place to
And I
go
know in this case that they were both arrested. The parents were.
in custody.
That's right. And
Hmm.
so that's the reason, because the other reason, Jackie, that I asked you, is because you've had to deal with that side of the system, right? It's one thing. Look, I've not worked in that part of the system, so
Hmm.
I don't know on a case by case, family by family, child by child situation. I have never heard that it's ideal. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that somehow it's Disney, if you get separated from your family and put into the system, right? But again, I'm trying to balance this out of like, what do we do when you aren't able to take care, or it's an abuse situation where clearly, like, getting thrown off of a second floor balcony is not good.
I,
So wait. What saved me now is apparently it's time for a break already, Jackie.
oh
So
my
that saved
goodness!
me.
Oh my
So we'll
goodness!
come right
Oh my
we'll come
goodness!
right back after this break. All right, WNFA family, we are back. You're listening to The Difference with Will Martin, and I am, Jacquelyn Rice,
Whatever.
the Honorable, has spent years, we're not going to say how many years, really working with families who are in need, working with both children and adults, teens, that whole spectrum on mental health issues, on issues of poverty, on issues of neglect and abuse, and child protective services. And so, one of the things I asked you, before the break is just like, what do we do when it's the balance between, how do we ensure the safety of children? We talked a little bit about a father who or stepfather in this situation who ends up throwing a 1-year-old from a second story balcony to the ground, and obviously would have done some damage in that situation. Or in the case recently of 6 children being found locked in a storage unit, where, as we were saying, Depot had heard that the family's homeless, and I sympathize with the fact that there are going to be people who have mental health issues. There are going to be people who are going to be aggressive. There are going to be things that happen to kids. There are also going to be cases of homelessness and poverty and a lack of resources to take care of, and these will always be situations. What I want to come to you as the expert in this is what should we be doing for the safety and care of these children, because systems don't always work, but I don't feel comfortable leaving that 2-month-old, that 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 7-year-old, and the 9-year-old all just out there.
Well, they are not in the facility now in terms of the storage group. They're in a home with persons who can provide them with appropriate care.
And so that would be the foster care system, is that?
Well, I believe they said they were in child CPS.
Okay. Break that down for us, though.
Child Protective Services.
When we talk about CPS, when we talk about Child Protective Service, what is that really? For the people who, like me, who are not in there, what is that when you get into that system?
So let me get just a tad bit. There has been movement throughout since the 1800s, care for children, because children have always been violated, not just physically violated, and also sexually violated,
and emotionally.
And that brings on the emotional part of it. And so there have been mechanisms. So they have evolved over the years. Historically, there was no governmental intervention. The governmental intervention came in the late 1800s or then the 1900s, where you began to see the government assuming the parental role and saying, well, no, that child needs better care. You can't do these kinds of things. Child Protective Services came in the 1970s when they said these things, these atrocities, and some of them were atrocious to children, we need to take action. And so they began to punish people who perpetrated those things against children, even in the 1800s. So, but for the children, I believe that if this is a whole family or half a family, you can't just worry about the child. You have to worry about that parent.
Okay.
Because they want their parent.
Oh, agreed.
And if we would look at it from a holistic perspective, rather than, oh, what about this little 2-month-old?
Yeah.
He has a parent or she has a parent. How are we going to treat the family? And that's where I think our downfall is.
Okay.
I think W2 and AFDC and all those missed the mark because they had so many negative components to it. And some of the things, and CPS, some of the things people just cannot meet. I got 6 children. This is hypothetically.
Yeah. Well, in this case, absolutely.
And I'm supposed to go to parenting class. I'm supposed to work at Papa. Where am I going to get the time? And when I miss, then I'm penalized.
Right.
So I just think we need to do a better job of treating the whole rather than components of the thing. And so, yes, now, based on how it will work, the children will be placed, I don't know, temporarily, because they might find out this family was not actually deliberative. They were not mean spirit. They didn't have an option.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was kind of creative. Who had ever thought about going to storage they to save us together,
Right.
just like the person who stayed in the car.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what Child Protective Service is, right?
Child
So
Protective Service
first
is
step is these kids are found, right?
first step. Somebody reported them,
Yep.
and the report was deemed to be appropriate enough to investigate.
Okay.
They had enough validity in it to believe that there was something going on.
Okay.
So I just assumed this is how the process. They went to that facility because
Mhm.
people have to give you a designation of where it occurred.
Okay.
So they went there. And they found what they were looking for,
Mhm.
and then the motion starts.
Okay.
They removed the children place because they deemed. I'm sure, William, when they had to cut it in, they say, "Hey, this is dangerous," not knowing what they were going to find when they got there
Yeah.
or anything. And so that's how. So Child Protective Services started, legally, I believe, in the 70s, where people had the opportunity to report.
Okay.
Reports were required to be investigated, and decisions are made.
And then they had to be confirmed or validated.
And
right?
hopefully they're confirmed at the front end.
Yeah.
So if you call and say Jackie Rice just left her kid in the car to come in here to make this, and whomever is the reviewer will ask certain questions and make a decision if it's a valid.
Okay.
They call it screened in or screened out.
Okay.
And so if they screen it, they're going to have to see that car if it's in there.
Okay.
So that's how it does.
Okay.
So it is it's a piece of legislation. And that started in the 70s. Jimmy Carter was in office when some of that. He instituted the permanency plan. Children deserve a permanent resident.
Mhm.
And so they began to look at the needs of children
Okay.
and what was deemed appropriate parenting.
Okay.
That's where some people get in conflict.
Mhm.
For instance, but your religion tells you don't do blood transfusion. And so your child is in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he needs a blood transfusion. What do? This Protective Services jump in. It is a dicey decision because now it's a medical decision and a legal decision.
Right. And
So-
a religious belief.
And religious belief, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So Jackie, then so we're beginning that process of Child Protective Service, right? So it's been validated.
Mhm.
The kids are then taken into custody. Are they
I like to say
in
that kids have
foster
been
care
placed
or
on the
like,
auspices of the state for their welfare.
okay?
Because when you say
So they're
custody,
wards of the state, as we used to say.
yeah, but it's not like you just put Debo in jail.
Right. Well,
he's lethal, right?
yeah. I don't know what he's doing, but yeah. I know what it is. He's trying to stay up out of this.
Right.
But so you're okay. So you're in under the care of the state,
Yeah.
right? So
But
who
let me
are the
tell you
kids?
let me tell you what happened. So when they remove them from that environment and assume responsibility, they have to go to court the
Okay.
next day and say these children were removed from wherever.
Okay.
These are the parents. These are the circumstances, and the judge adjudicates where they stay or they go back home.
So to make this more concrete for families here, we're talking about Milwaukee County Child Protective Service would be the entity that would be looking at this, right?
Really, Milwaukee County is under the state.
Okay.
It's the state.
It's the state
Yeah,
now. Okay.
Bureau of Child Welfare.
Bureau of Child. Okay.
Right.
All right. So
Right.
it's Department of Children and Families,
Yes, right.
Bureau of, okay.
Child Welfare.
Okay, great.
Right.
And then we're going from there to, all right, so they've gone to court. They're telling them why. And so I presume they found them a home,
Yes.
like a family.
So when children are placed on the auspices of the
Yeah.
state and they're removed from their parental physical presence, there are agencies like mine who have programs called foster care.
Okay. And so you're at St. Charles
I'm
Youth
the
and
St.
Family
Charles,
Services.
But my program is more for children who have psychiatric disabilities.
Mhm.
But then there are those who don't.
Right. That's
Right.
right. So there's a whole range.
Yes.
You're picking really the best suited situation for the
So when
family.
when I have a referral,
Yeah.
I see if I have an adequate family in which to match the needs
The
of that
needs
child.
of those. Okay.
Needs of child.
of
I
that
try
child
to
or
do
those
that
children.
so that because I believe that the child should have, although the child is already traumatized,
Yeah.
because who said those children are unhappy in that? Okay.
Yeah.
So they remove from their children, place somebody that don't even know. That's trauma to me.
Mm-hmm.
And now they got to circle back and go
Yeah.
to another home.
Yeah.
And so we need to be, I need to find a family that who is nurturing and
Right.
understands.
And in your case, what you're saying is the kids are going to face trauma no matter what the circumstance is, just
and that's
by
just my
virtue.
professional belief.
But whether they continue down the path they're on, or there's going to be some level of trauma. And the question is, which is worse? Mr. Debo.
Well, I just wanted to ask Miss Jacquelyn. CHIPS is what they would be deemed
It's
at that
Child
point,
in Need of Protective Services.
right? So they become a part of the CHIPS program, and then you have like receiving homes that are.
We don't have we don't have receiving homes anymore.
Okay.
We used to have receiving homes,
Mhm.
large buildings where when child was during the night or during the day, rather than trying to hustle, you just take them there to decide
Like
what
a very
the plan-
temporary stay.
right. What would be the plan?
Mhm.
Now they place children hopefully immediately. Sometimes
Mhm.
they have to stay with children's or whomever the agency is
Uh-huh.
until they can find a different home.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my program is a kind of like a contractor with the state where
Mhm.
we accept referrals, and I try to match as very carefully as I can.
Yeah.
So the way I was going with this, so children will have some modicum of security
Yeah.
and comfort,
Right.
and the person who receives understands what was going on.
Right.
Does this speak to a bigger problem though? When you have parents who don't have the housing,
Right.
Maybe the resources, is there a gap that they've fallen in?
And see,
could
that's
cause
the
for this
question.
kind of-
What happens is that when the information is disseminated through the court process, and
Yeah.
then I don't have that, they will make a determination. This is not a mean-spirited bad guy who dropped a baby. This
Yeah.
is a person who is down on his or their luck. How can we help them? They're given an opportunity to try to rectify that.
But the court is going to determine.
The court will determine
and the
that.
system are going
Right.
to determine:
That's
is
correct.
this somebody who has malintent for the child, right? Or is it somebody, as you say, Donald Luck? And what my concern is, I think these are potentially two different kinds of cases, right?
They're
The
very
6
different.
children living in the storage, the family has tried to, whatever the parents did or did not do, they at least were trying to keep the kids together.
They kept them
Okay,
together.
so we can all agree on that much. My question then is well, then what's the best for them? And I know, Jackie, you feel like the answer is the government should do more to provide for that family.
I hate using the word government. It kind of like it has no eyes and ears. I believe that the resources that we allocate through the monies that we send to all these institutions need to have a better sense of how to take care of the family.
Now, what I want, we took your story all the way back to South Carolina, right? So where a part of where I'm going with this is too. Like you, I grew up in the South, right? So I grew up in Tennessee. We took care of our own. There wasn't a government program for a long time. There was the community stepping up. There was the church stepping up. So when you gave me the formula for success for your family, it was religion, education, and work, right? Were pillars of that. And so to me, part of this is about what's our obligation to each other, regardless of what CPS, Child Protective Service, or what others do. What's our obligation to each other to make sure that child?
When I taught social work, and I shared with the students that social work was not always racial friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It was none activities. Then they were segregated if they had any social worker,
Mm-hmm.
and so the resources that were offered to others were not offered to. So we did depend on each other in our neighborhood,
on our community
stepping up. And families.
Yeah.
Now we know that families have been dispersed. I don't even have a lot of families. So if I had small children that fell out, if my sister wasn't able to take it, they'd be a hard pressed.
Yeah.
So churches, it seems that we have disappeared from that practice. But let me tell you, we might be headed back that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We might be headed in that direction again, to find out what's best for the community and our
And that's the question I'm always asking is I just don't think the answer is a one size fits all because look, we talk about, and I think it's legitimate to say there are parents who are under stress and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. And I get that part. And we as a community can still step up and help those people
Yes,
navigate,
I
right?
believe that.
What I worry about is, you know, and Debo, we've had these conversations, we had these shows where it's heartbreaking that you got 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are out here stealing cars faster than you can claim, and are literally killing people, are literally running cars into folks. We've had you know, grown folk die as a result of these kids just racing through the streets. All this comes from somewhere, right? And I think part of it is the breakdown of the family and the ability to support these kids. And so part of my thing is, how do we support these kids before these kind of tragedies happen on the back
See,
end?
the way for me, I believe the way our society is structured is that the family is not a separate entity from our community or from the government,
Okay.
and that is a responsibility with both.
Okay.
Individuals have a certain responsibility for themselves in terms of doing what they have to do.
Okay.
But because of how we are structured, our social order also has a responsibility to ensure that they can access those.
Okay, and I think that's fair. A mutual responsibility
That's
and
right.
mutual accountability to each other.
And let's don't leave out accountability.
Okay, they're right. So it's got to be both.
Individuals have accountability, and so does the social order have accountability.
Okay. And so to me, you know, I think about these 6 kids, right? My heart grieves for the child who was thrown over, because the amount
Totally
of trauma.
different.
Right.
You know, and so when you talk about them in that context, I understand you're talking about the needs of the children and the helplessness of the children and at the mercy of a parent.
Right.
But I don't know anything about the 6 children.
Yeah.
But when you describe the person who threw we clearly looking at mental health.
Right.
And where are the services for mental health in this community?
Right. And I'll give it to you. So, you know, again, that gentleman, I'm going to say gentleman, but, you know, beating up on your wife is not okay. Beating up on this kid is not okay.
So,
right?
William, let me stop you.
Yeah.
Men have been told since the beginning of time that they have authority over women.
I'm going to get real silent for a minute. Okay, I'm going to listen.
And
wait. And Debo's out too now, so okay.
And it has been, now maybe your listeners might disagree with me, and that women are to obey and children are to obey. We moved away from that.
I'm moving way away from that.
I think, in some instances, but the issue of domestic violence is live and real, and
I say unacceptable.
I would agree, and so
criminal,
and they pay the price. But sometimes the I'm dominant over you is out of my own anger, my own frustration.
Yeah.
I believe in the training theory that they've taught that this is how you control women.
Well, we need to figure out how to untrain.
And you can't untrain them all in prison.
Well, and for me, you know, so for somebody who, now look, if you're talking about somebody who's truly clinically mentally ill, then my answer is that person needs to go into some other treatment. And I understand what you're saying about there are very limited beds for that. We should prioritize people who are violent because of a mental illness, right? 100% believe in let's get that person.
And so,
some help.
Like I think some people who become men who become so aggressive towards women, they might have a diagnosis in the DSM-5. But it could be clearly that they own life history.
Right.
They are so angry. Do you know some of the children I see are so angry? They 9 and 5 years old. The anger.
But it's coming from where they've been raised.
Right? And there's a debate that I have sometimes with people. Some people believe, they're born like that. I don't always buy that.
I don't buy it either.
I don't always buy that.
And that's why I'm
but some children whose parents have mental health diagnosis have similar behaviors and characteristics. So it is a dicey.
And I think growing up in a household, research shows that if you are in a household where you are watching, you're experiencing, witnessing this kind of violence, you will be more likely to inflict that kind of violence on somebody else.
And it's anger.
Yeah,
it's the anger that's there that triggers. And how do I modulate or manage the anger and not get mad?
And that's a place where I think you gave this formula for your family success as religion, education, work, right? And I think that's an amazing place for the church to step up and be real and relevant for people today.
But let me tell you something. if you look back on how children have killed their parents,
Yeah.
and they had education, they had religion, they had money,
Mm-hmm.
but what was going on in the household?
Yeah.
And they weren't poor.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is an issue that we have not wanted to deal with
Well,
because
right.
some of the people who make the decisions are just as guilty.
Well, and again, I just think, if we start from the premises of what is good for this child, so that they come out, Jack, I'm even say this as positively I could say, I want the children to be able to grow up like you, so
You
they got
know,
as much opportunity as you.
well, if you're just looking at the opportunities that I had, you better look at the other side. The rice was might not be as nice as you think I am. My family wasn't as nice as, but we value what you was describing as me.
But there were also expectations for you
I
too,
had
right?
expectations, but my parents also had balance in their
Yeah.
lives. Now, truly, I grew up in segregated South Carolina. I'm
Yeah.
sure there was part segregation here, but how do we make it?
Right.
And what kind of innate stuff that you had on your own to
And
make
I
it?
think we made it so often because of strong family as well as strong community. As you say, there's in your study, there's no difference between a family and the community of which they are part, right? And so to me, it's a complete breakdown, especially when we get into these really urban areas where it's more anonymous. Everybody stay out of my business. And what we think we've done is separate ourselves so that when we don't have, there's not a natural place to go.
There are no natural resources
Right.
and networking where people can go and access. And so, I don't know if that's because urbanization did that, and we did not have. I didn't even grow up in a large family, but the community was there.
Yeah.
I just really believe, that there are some ills that we have never wanted to address.
Right. And it feels to me
Racism
like,
is one of them.
okay, but I think the church is one of those institutions that got us through. And in the fact that, as you said, that there's a diminished relationship with
right.
the churches today.
There is a diminished role that the church has relinquished in a minute.
And so that's to me where there's an opportunity to talk about a new relevance of our churches when we really talk about our families that are a critical and vulnerable place. Even if the system failed, that family, these 6 kids, our community, our churches should have been in a position to be able to help.
And
right?
I believe that there are various institutions that need to step up.
100%.
And so I would.
But I'm thinking about the ones we
use,
we
right.
operate, but also that we lead, right? And I think there are fewer and fewer institutions that we lead, and so it puts us in a place where we aren't always in a place to help in the way that we might think.
Well, we also adopted some other values that the other group has that is not always applicable to us because the variables that exist don't match.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we would take care. I remember my mother buying clothing for the kids who lived down the way.
Right. And my grandparents and great grandparents.
Right. That doesn't happen now.
I will say, in my family, in Tennessee was certainly a segregated place, right?
Right.
But in my lifetime, I have known my grandparents and my great grandparents to go out and buy things for white and black.
Right.
Because they were dealing with the humanity of the people who had
so
need.
let me clarify. I said it doesn't work. We use clothing banks and food banks as a way to sustain. What you and I are talking about is the individuality, the human connection,
the humanity of it all.
Right.
And I think that's we've kind of lost this ability to connect to each other in ways that helped us before when there was no other help.
That's correct.
And I think if you get any additional things and you have that base, you can succeed. But when you have none of those things in place,
and you can success, because we predicate success on material, but I believe in the mental health part of it. I believe in the self-satisfaction part, that if my emotional needs are also attended to, then the other parts can come.
Absolutely. And I guess mostly what I wanted to come out of this conversation with is, it's not simple.
It's not simple.
right? B, there are things we can do as part of the community. This is not a parent and child and system thing. This is a community thing. These are happening to us.
But I do believe that because, and I was asking you about this concept of intersectionality, how all these social ills are connected,
Mm-hmm.
and the bedrock of some of it is racism, and where we need to face up
Yeah.
to that. This what keeps other people from allowing other people to prosper.
And the same time that you bring that up, I'd say our community was stronger even in some of these most challenging times that we took care of one another. And
That's
so
correct.
part of the thing is people can step up today. If they want to become a foster parent, they can step up. If they want to make sure these 6 kids, for instance, the other children that are in these situations, if they want to step up and become a foster parent, they can do that for 1, 2, 3, 6 kids, right?
6 kids, right? Okay.
I now look, that's
So
not exactly.
I'm glad you segue into the needs in
Yeah.
terms of foster care. We are always recruiting.
Yeah, we always recruit. And where can they find you, Jackie? If somebody wanted to really step up and become,
414-539-4907.
what is that number again?
414-539-4907.
And Jacquelyn Rice, you were at St. Charles Youth and Family
That's
Services, right?
correct. That's correct.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you for coming in here. I knew we were going to have this little rope a dope to try to have this conversation. And thank you, Debo, for stepping into. But, we got to just take care of our own at the end of the day. Okay, so we're going to be able to take one more break and keep this going. Oh, that's beautiful, man.
Oh, I got another.
Oh, hey, that's beautiful. So, okay, now
You go
we can
over
rope it
somewhere.
over a little bit longer. Okay, we'll come right back after this break. Family, this is Will Martin, and you're listening to The Difference. And we've been talking about just what can we do for kids who are caught up in neglect, caught up in abusive situations and all. And we've talked a lot about society. We've talked, but I always try to come back to what can we do at the end of the day. And so, Glynis, you have also joined us, Glynis Underwood, and always like to get you in here. It's a little hard to get you in here sometimes, but like to get you in here. And so, can you talk a little bit too about, what more can families in this community do to get involved, right? We talked a lot today about these kids who are traumatized by being taken away, even if their situation's bad. But they also are going through some real trauma in some circumstances today, right? And there's a whole range. And I know I've talked to you before about there's traditional foster care, there's some specialized foster care, like your organization, St. Charles Youth and Family Services provides. What can families do to get engaged with you all, and how do they get to you?
Well, first of all, I appreciate even just the opportunity for being able to step in. I know, apologize for being late, but dealing with situations.
Yeah.
That's what happens, right? And so
Dealing with real.
dealing with real. And I know Miss Rice has definitely gave you all the things. I think the biggest thing that we want to keep saying to families, the biggest thing, sorry, is that there are resources, that
Yeah.
there is help that's in our community, and that don't be afraid to reach out and ask for that help. Even though it might not be what you're necessarily looking for right now, it's still important to ask for that help. And
Okay.
St. Charles has been at least in a space where we have some resources available to kind of gear people towards the direction that they need to go.
Okay. And for parents or for families, right, rather, or for seniors who are retired, for folks that got a heart for this and a heart for these children, whatever they've been through, how do they get involved with St. Charles Youth and Family Services and potentially become a foster parent?
So there's a number of ways. We have orientation sessions that we offer throughout the year. And they're typically held in local spots around the city. We often like to use our space at Owens Place. It's a community-based location, and it's also one that foster parents can continue to use once
Yeah.
they become foster parents. So that's another wonderful spot. We can be contacted directly by telephone. We have email opportunities. They can send an email. They can contact St. Charles directly. So, however, we're at community events. I'm sure people saw
And
throughout the summer.
your website is stcharlesinc.org.
Yes.
.org.
.org.
St. Charles Inc. St. Charles Inc.
INC.org.
Right. Okay. And also, I know you've talked to me as well about sort of the trauma of kids who've been raised in foster care, where the family, their birth family wasn't one where they could stay. Where they absolutely did need to be somewhere else. But the system is the system, and at 18, the system stops. And I know you're dealing with some teens who are trying to make their own way, and food has become a real concern, right? And so I know you've talked about the ability for people in our community to donate both perishable, non-perishable food. So some of these kids who don't qualify for other things can still be fed and can still stay on a positive path.
That's a good point. Transitioning into adulthood is hard for everybody.
Right.
All
On the
of us.
best of
From
circumstances.
the best of circumstances, it's just a change that everybody has to go through. But having support to go through it actually makes life a little bit better. But I think you're right. One of the other parts of our ability to continue to work with our foster care program is our transitioning to adulthood programs through Owens Place. And we do see hunger, we see homelessness, we see just need for medical attention, mental health attention, just navigating systems that without someone else to support them, they're not able to actually be just to be successful there. So Owens Place, 2 locations, one 4610 West Fond du Lac, another is 5th and National. That one just opened last year, but we work in conjunction. It's kind of like to continue the process for those young people so that they're just not left alone.
Right,
And
right.
That's really has
And I
turned
think
out
that
to be a nice progression.
You're
for them.
giving them some of the support that the family, either their birth family or that foster family, is no longer either in a position or able to give you. And so I just want to make sure that people know they can donate. I know food was a real concern of yours.
Thing. We non-perishable food items are always the best. We definitely would love to see that. many of our foster parents, even though the child's no longer with them, they hang on to those families, those young people. They still talk to them. But hygiene products, we're doing a hygiene drive this month. We are always looking for just items that can help.
When is that hygiene?
It's ongoing.
When it? Okay,
It's
so
going to be ongoing through the rest of this year.
Okay.
We have a big event coming up on October 2nd at our location on Fond du Lac called A Better You. It's all regarding items that you may need just to make yourself a better person.
Okay, and so how can people connect with you to make that donation? If they're moved to do that, what can they? How can they get in touch with you?
There is a way on our Owens Place website, which is Owens Place. It's Owens Place.
Okay.
You can go online and just type that in, and both locations will come up.
Okay.
Same thing. Contact St. Charles at the 414-476-3710 phone number.
Okay.
The centers are open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. They can just stop by with their donations. We'll accept them that way.
Beautiful. For me, we always talk so much about these bad kids and everything these bad kids are out here. But you know what I'm talking about, like where we always have this conversation after something happens but we don't talk about like what can we do as a community to stop that from happening and stepping in. And so, I appreciate you all coming in today and actually offering up some things that we as a community can come support so we can support our kids.
Please do.
Absolutely.
I don't believe there's a bad kid. I think we got to not be so judgmental.
Well, 100%.
Figure out a way in which we can support them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody came here bad, right? Well,
he did.
Wait.
We had that discussion about the
people are trying to point fingers back here.
Going with a blank slate or not.
Yes, right.
What do we teach them something, right?
Look, I might have come here with a briefcase. I don't know. I'm just saying. But on that point, it's about time to go, I think. And so I really appreciate Glynis Underwood and Jacquelyn A. Rice, Angel. Thank you both for coming in and really helping educate us on some of these really thorny issues. And so until next week.
Thank you, Mr. Will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace out.